Good evening, Master. Let's start this session with the aim of transmitting the good news of all our brotherhoods. It is with great pleasure that we are here again. Once again, I remind everyone that we have been able to establish a more effective communication with human beings. All the information we are passing on is departing from the conjunction of all the information of all the brotherhoods, as if we were talking in one voice. The idea today is to talk about the issues that affects Brazil, the energy egregore that is hovering over this country. It is important to say that, as has been said before, in Brazil we have an ideal environment because of the conjunction of several races. In other words, of several different lineages. This is also the way in the spiritual world, where we have the conjunction of several brotherhoods from different planets that in a very remote past appeared on Earth in different regions. And now, after many centuries, the offspring from these various planets are there in conjunction in this homeland, on Brazil's land. This means that we also have different homes or spiritual cities seeking the spirits that were once Brazilians. And so we would like to explain in a little more detail how do the various spiritual abodes that reign geographically in Brazil work. For example, the spirits who disembodied, whose offspring was once African, are assigned to astral cities of their origin, as well as Aryans and Asians who have colonies or astral cities specific to their origins. In this way, it is ensured that the ancestors of each being are gathered in a particular colony or in a particular spiritual city. But we also have exceptions where there is a spiritual junction of beings of different ethnicities, different offspring. In this case, at the time of his ascension, his will to be in either spiritual city is respected, but as a rule, it follows its ancestors by affinity. Therefore, the forwarding mechanism of human beings who have just disembodied follow, so to speak, a ritual in which their ancestors, whose energy or frequency is closer to the being of light, is responsible for accompanying the transition from the disembodied being from the material plane to the spiritual plane or to the astral plane. Of course, the stronger the relationship between these beings from the spirit world or from the astral world, the easier the communication between the beings of light or the beings of the astral world with the individual who has just disembodied. For this reason, we say that it is important during your stay on the material plane, you human beings establish a relationship with your ancestors, through prayers to God, requesting or sending positive energies, loving messages to them. It is important that these communications are carried out. As has been said before, this is a habit more common in humans in the Eastern world. But this should also be followed by other ethnic groups. This is not to say that those who do not establish this communication in life will not be forwarded by their loved ones. However, it would be important for their ancestors to refer their respective descendants. However, it would be important for the ancestors to refer their respective descendants. Of course, when this relationship between the ancestors is quite distant, eventually people who are not part of the family lineage can help. They can accompany the disembodied to their proper treatment. But in these cases, the disembodied being is at the mercy of the goodwill of other beings. This fact should be exposed to all human beings because with the dissemination of this information, we would certainly modify the issues of the astral plane extensively. What happens is that often a disembodied being ends up not having the necessary help in his disembodiment and gets lost because of his situation and ends up falling into despair. He ends up falling apart and then falls into other paths that could be avoided. I think it is possible to understand that, right? Let us say that a considerable percentage of beings on the astral plane might not be in the same situation they are in if there was a closer monitoring from their loved ones. And in this case, we would avoid having so many beings lost in the astral plane. Beings who roam for years and years, lost, not knowing what to do, with no one to turn to, and who are subject to beings with energies, let's say, not so good, and can become as true slaves to these malicious beings. If every father and mother fulfilled their role effectively in caring for their young, surely these children, after growing up, would be adults who would hardly be distorted from the virtuous path, from the path of righteousness. However, as is well known, when parents do not fulfill their role, children end up distorting from the path of good. Likewise, on the spiritual level, the example repeats itself. If parents, during their lives, educated their children to guide them on the issues of ancestors, the importance of ancestors, and the importance of caring for the welfare of their ancestors, everything would be much easier. Everything would be more organized in the spirit world or in the astral world. Many souls are lost in the astral plane for years and years, and then end up pestering human beings, for lack of knowledge, these lost disembodied beings will seek the necessary energy in the material plane, and they end up, as it is customary to say, vampirizing human beings. And of course, they choose the human beings who have the greatest affinity with them, that is, their own descendants. And then, because of this search for energy by the beings of the astral world, the vampirized human being end up being harmed by their ancestors, who find themselves in difficulties in the astral plane. We can say that most of the works of the beings of light, with the help of some special human beings, are carried out on behalf of these beings in the astral plane, who are often in deplorable states due to lack of energy, because they do not know the mechanism that governs the astral world. Therefore, we need this information to reach the largest number of people, to try to modify this fact that occurs in the astral plane today, so that we, beings of light, can work not on the rescue of beings from the astral plane, but that we can work assisting human beings in their spiritual evolution, so that the whole world can ask for help from us. We can say without fear of error that today 90 to 95% of the actions of the beings of light, together with special human beings, are used for these rescues, and only 5% to 10% of our activities are carried out for effective actions to help human beings in their spiritual evolution. We need to modify this soon. Of course, these jobs with these percentages will take a long time to change significantly, but we must begin to act immediately so that humanity in the distant future changes with our help. In our view, for this issue to change, we need to begin to change the relationship between parents and children. The education of a child in all matters is the responsibility of their parents. Traditional education, ethical education, and spiritual education are the responsibility of parents, only of parents. We now know that this responsibility has been transferred by parents to schools and religions. Parents think that a child's education should be transferred to teachers, that spiritual education should be transferred to religious leaders. I say that these are big mistakes that bring horrible consequences today. Therefore, it is especially important that parents fulfill their role, and you must take responsibility when you bring a human being into the world. Nowadays, banality governs much of the material world when it comes to the education of children. More and more human beings are shifting their focus and leaving aside the essence of earthly life. It is important that human beings are born, grow, and reproduce. However, this must be done with great responsibility. This starts with the banality of sex these days. We know that sex today was distorted from its real goal, which would be the reproduction of human beings, and that they would have an eternal bond. Because of the current situation of humanity, this issue has become totally distorted. Again, the human being in this matter simply seeks his pleasure and nothing more. Because of this fact, many negative aspects, many impacts occur. The irresponsibility of the fact of generating a human being is an abominable thing, truly abominable. It should be said that sex should not only be used for pleasure purposes. For human beings who seek only pleasure, it is possible that sex can be performed without conceiving a child. Therefore, if two human beings come together without the intention of generating a child, it is necessary to use contraceptives, and that children are born only in ideal situations of love between two people. We understand that several facts can occur during a couple's life. We understand that during the life of a couple, modifications may occur that may eventually cause separations. But it is important that in the moment of conceiving a human being, there is love. And for this, it is important that a plan is made so that the children receives proper care, proper love, and proper education. Because a maternal and paternal bond carries itself throughout material life. It is important to say that. After the death of a father or a mother, the child must in fact pray that his father or mother, or even his loved ones, are in the best possible way in the astral plane. Rest assured that prayers for disembodied beings bring a fundamental energy to them, especially right after disembodiment. The energy of prayer is fundamental so that the being who has just disembodied can overcome the challenges in the transition between the material world and the spiritual world. Therefore, it is so important to do prayers and send positive energy right after the disembodiment and during the following days as well, so that the disembodied being feels supported, feels properly energized in this important moment of transition. With the renewed energies of prayer, plus the help of the beings of light from their family line, the disembodiment is much easier. Hence the importance of this energy transmission. The ancient wisdom of the Eastern world, transmitted from generation to generation, makes it so that the beings of this lineage have the most appropriate procedures in these occasions. It is known that even before the disembodiment of a human being, the beings of light, the beings of the astral plane, with properly elevated energy, know the situation of the human being. and already prepared the astral plane to receive this human being. Hence, the transition is much easier. The transition is almost immediate. Of course, that depends on the worthiness of each human being. But the law of action and reaction is followed to the letter. Therefore, if the human being during his earthly life has ceased to walk in righteousness, he will have to pay his price on the astral plane. Their ancestors, as far as possible, will guide them through their past, their present, and their future. So, when the human being needs to go through his trials, this question is inevitable, but he will be informed, fully informed. Therefore, human beings who do not follow or do not know these issues need to be informed, properly informed about this whole range of information, about the responsibility of the education of parents to their children and of human beings to their ancestors. If this information is transmitted, surely the world will gradually change. Then we will have a spiritual evolution taking place in a more accelerated way. It is important to say that we are all united here, all of us from various brotherhoods, of course, including the Eastern Brotherhood. But we all recognize that there is much to be learned from this brotherhood of the Eastern world. We all recognize that the Eastern Brotherhood, because of its ancient knowledge and its discipline and organization of its member, is in a differentiated situation because of these mechanisms which we have just informed you. There is much work for this same concept to be applied in all other brotherhoods. There is much to work on. There is much to be informed of for all the brotherhoods until we get to the point of the Eastern Brotherhood. But this is the precept that must be followed by all of us. Each brotherhood works in the best possible way, but we know that in these matters dealt with here, we do have much to learn from our friends of the Eastern Brotherhood. Therefore, we are grateful that we are coexisting harmoniously in this work that we are doing today and in the other sessions, because we are also learning a lot among ourselves in the brotherhoods. This opportunity to be working together is being wonderful, not only for you human beings, but also for us, beings of light, who are gathered here far away from our brotherhoods, learning the best of the worlds existing in our universes. And I am sure we will still have a lot to learn. Each of the brotherhoods work in a different way, has procedures, rituals, and therefore we have much to learn from this work. So we are grateful. We have much to thank for this work performed so beautifully with such an important goal, not only for the material plane, but also for us of the spiritual plane. We hope that sessions like this will be repeated throughout the universe. Surely, we all hope for it. I believe that for today we are pleased with the messages transmitted. Many thanks to Master Tanaka, to all the beings of light present here. We hope to meet again next week. So be it. Oh, thank God.